Hi to all. Uh, the perceived notion is that to many is that editing probably is a very mechanical job. So it can be true if the editor doesn't explore his capabilities, because then you just do what the director was telling. So the interesting thing was that when I started my career started off in a way that it was more like an accident for me, because although my dad was into this field and I was doing literature and stuff like that. At some point I wanted to do some other thing, but in a particular holidays I was involved in or made to be involved with my dad's work to see it. And he told me only one thing: just observe and absorb what you're seeing. Give it a try. If you like it, then you can do. Otherwise, it's okay. So I thought something would be taught, but it was not like that from for him. He for him it is like if you observe it, you will know what it is about. So it started off in that note for me. And initially, it was also a little bit of. I was very fascinated that every day a new story is being told, one new scene is being edited. So suddenly, when something comes to life and you're very excited, by the end of the day, when you're going back, you started off with some different rushes and you put it together and it's become a sequence, or it's become a song, or it's become something. So there's something to take back home where you're very excited with. That's how it was. But for me also, it was initially a bit of a mechanical uh, process, because there used to be somebody who used to say do this, do that, and all that stuff. And then after some time, as I started exploring and then we started working, then I realized that it's got much more. Then I started questioning why it should be done like that, why can't we do it like this, which is, and then you start developing that whole attitude towards trying to develop something else, and that whole process, it changes. It took me about a few years, but I started. So it's very important for a person to actually uh, look at it and question the why to cut, where to cut, and where not to cut. These three things are very important for the editor to actually do a good job, because he's it's very predictable. It can be if the x number of shots are taken and you start cutting it in a particular rhythm, which is like first wide shot, then you put a close shot, then you have all the shots available. But why do you cut a shot at a point? You have to give it a thought and say that why when will I go closer, in the scene itself. So if I go to the closer at a point where it makes a statement, that's probably the best place to go. And if a shot is being held for some time and it is holding, and you are able to understand that it is working, as then what is the necessity to cut just because you have a number of shots? So that discretion is the most important thing an editor has to, so every time you see the rushes and you're experiencing a particular shot, you have to think once that where to cut is very important. But why I'm cutting here and why not a little? Is it because I have so many shots which I can use, because editing is about cutting and joining, or is it because that it makes a gradual entry into the scene? So you suppose a scene is happening wide and then you're going little closer, and the scene heats up and it becomes very important things are happening, which you can actually tell when in the closer, which will make a huge impact. On the other hand, if you are working on something which you want to reveal, and then you would probably start from the closer tighter perspective, and then move on to wide and say, oh yeah, I'm here to reveal. So these sort of discretions, so you have to put your mind and think about it and get to it. And how you look at the rushes is very important, I feel, because the moment you look at the rushes is there is something which will you will observe in the rushes, which is this performance is good, this is good, but it may be so many. There may be 8 shots, 8 takes, six, 3 cameras, 4 cameras, anything. So what happens is, the way I do it is that some people have asked also in the comment section that how do I organize my rushes. So the thing is that first, when I watch the rushes, I go through the rushes and mark all the good portions in the rushes. It can be the same dialogue can be maybe 6 times, maybe 5 times, whatever. Just shortlist them into a smaller timeline, because when I get the rushes, probably it is, suppose there's 1 hour of rushes, and then I'm starting to select. After the whole selection and taking off all the unnecessary portions, I may land up with some 20-30 minutes of good content without the claps and without the bad takes and stuff like that. Now is when I try to conceive the edit pattern of the scene. So what happens is, you are very sure that all the good material that you wanted to be used in that scene is there. So with that, I start constructing that scene, and it goes on to finishing the scene. So at this point, it's not about doing one particular thing. Sometimes now that we have a facility, I even make 2 versions of it, where I feel maybe this could have been used, or this could also have been used in the same place. So there is a possibility of trying 2-3 versions of the same thing and seeing. So this whole thing is, I think, very important for a editor to be not mechanical, but see that he lives through the rushes, sees the rushes, observes all them, and also in the rushes, what is most important thing is the performances. So the best performances, you don't want to go into the waste, so you take all the best then you decide how it can be cut in a very smooth manner. So this is the whole process I undertake before actually when I see the rushes and start editing.